Hello, everyone. Please put a 1 in the chat box if you all can hear and see me clearly. Okay. Good. All right. Good. So let me go ahead, share my screen. Now, one thing I do know about Hopin is sometimes, okay, it's allowing me to do that. So it is allowing me to share my screen and to also come back and forth inside of the presentation so that I am able to see you all as I present. Okay, so that's really good. All right, so I'm going to get started. Welcome to the sessions inside of Rethinking Church to Serve the Digital Age virtual conference. I'm really excited to be here. So I thank you to the organizers and the moderators of this event for having such an amazing and timely conference for each of our churches to participate in, for our ministries to grow online. So I'm going to be talking about a topic that centers around graphic design. So the title of it is Digital Church University, Powerful Graphics for Online Ministry. So let me introduce myself to you. You may have seen my short bio by way of the social media promotion or here inside of Hopin, but I want to formally introduce myself to you all as you are here in this session. So my name is Keisha Kay Reynolds. I'm going to read my short bio as I have it here. So Keisha Kay Reynolds is best defined as kinetic. She puts things in motion and believes in the power of community. Keisha is the CEO of K&R Communications, a branding and digital marketing agencies for small businesses and churches. Keisha has published work on social media for higher education and speaks around the country on its use for churches. Not only that, but she is also a professor at Hampton University in the Scripps Howard School of Journalism and Communications, where she leads the strategic communications curriculum. Keisha holds a Master of Arts in Media and Communications from Norfolk State University and a Bachelor of Science in Journalism and Technical Communications from Ferris State University. In addition, she is the beauty behind the brand of Empowering Her, a women's empowerment organization for business and self-care. Most recently, Keisha was inducted into Forbes The Culture, which is an affiliate of Forbes, and Lifestyle Magazine Top 30 Under 40, receiving this honor with several millennial-based entrepreneurs across the world, US, UK, and Africa. Some of her notable religious clients include the Virginia Baptist State Convention and the National Baptist State Convention USA Incorporated by way of IROC. So I said all of that to say that you are in good hands. You are in a good place to learn about the topic that we're going to dive deeper into today, which is graphics. So before I jump into this topic, I do want to introduce you all to a platform that I launched and created in last year. Extremely timely. I wrote the vision for it in 2017. God put it on my heart for me to launch it at the beginning of 2020 in January, not knowing how timely this was going to be, because in March of 2020, everything changed. This platform is called Digital Church University. And Digital Church University is an online education platform for churches. It teaches ministries how to use social media and digital technology to create an e-church experience, how to build digital pathways. We also offer done-for-you services, and one of those done-for-you services I'm going to talk about today is this element of graphic design. We have summits and retreats. Our mission is centered around using digital discipleship to impact lives. So our mission is to serve as a resource to churches by providing online training to help church leaders and ministries gain a deeper understanding of how to utilize social media and digital outlets to share the gospel of Jesus Christ in a digital age. So this platform is called Digital Church University. You can learn more about it by going to digitalchurchuniversity.com. One of the elements that we have inside of DCU is, again, those done for you services that center primarily around this topic of graphic design. So church logo design, banner designs, any type of marketing collateral from stationaries to business cards, pins, all of those things, t-shirts, anything that falls in this window of graphic design. We have done for churches. We have done for larger conventions as well. But before I really go deeper into what makes these graphics powerful, I want to talk about how we use these graphics and why graphic design plays a key piece in this element of storytelling, or in this element of having a communications plan for your church, in this element of using social media for ministry, and essentially how you can stand out. I like to bring graphic design into this larger conversation of content development, content creation. This may be a topic that you have heard a lot of, especially in 2020, is that churches have to create more content, and we have to repurpose our content and find better ways to use our content, right? And one of the places out of all the sectors that I've worked with, the church really does have the most content. What we really don't do well is position that content online so that it reaches those who we desire to reach. And then also it brings people into our ministries, into joining our churches in an online capacity, but also when we get back to the point of being in a physical building. That first thing that people see when they go and they Google a church and they're looking for a church in their location, maybe they just relocated, they're a college student, or they're just simply searching for a new church home. They're going to first meet your church and interact with your church online. So that piece of content is so important because it introduces your ministry, your church, the culture that is within your church to someone who knows nothing about your ministry, and they may not have come to know about Christ just yet. But all of that can change with how you position that content, how you use graphic design in an online space. So content is what makes your church stand out. Everything that happens in a digital space is based on this element of content. So when we think about content, I want us to think about photos. I want us to think about videos. I want us to think about podcasts. I want us to think about written posts. So that could be blogs, that can be a status, that can also be your captions. And that content can be any levels of sharing, right? So if someone shared it to their page, they repost it. If it happens to go viral, things like that. So that is essentially what content is and how it works in this space. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about storytelling a little later in the presentation. But you see this image that I have off to the side is that essentially everything comes from that marketing plan, that communications plan that we're going to have from the church. And then from there, we have these other elements that stem out from it: context, content, storytelling, social media. So you must learn how to create the content within your congregation to make for a good social media presence. So I mentioned earlier that the church has a lot of content. Our content can be things such as announcements. You know that on Sunday morning, there's going to be some announcement that happens. Those announcements don't have to be just verbal announcements. Those announcements doesn't have to be just someone reading out of the bulletin. That announcement can be turned into something that we can use on our virtual platforms. So if we're going to use those announcements on our virtual platforms, it can become now a video. One of the things that my church does, and I'm a member of Second Calvary Baptist Church in Norfolk, Virginia, under the leadership of Reverend Dr. Jeffrey Van Guns. And one of the things that we have at our church is called SCBC TV, right? So it's abbreviation of Second Calvary Baptist Church, SCBC TV, right? So with that, our announcements are in video format, and they've actually been like that for at least the last 5 to 6 years, right? So we were a little ahead of the curve with this one. So they've been like that for the last 5 to 6 years, where those video announcements come after we have sung our devotional, praise and worship, and we've done tithes and offering. Now we're having these video announcements. They come up on the screen, and it's this lively voice that essentially wakes everyone back up and says, hello, SCBC, here are your weekly announcements. And it goes through it. And as we see on that screen, we're always going to see the graphic piece that has been created for it. What's going to happen with that voiceover is that they're going to go into more detail about what this event or what this workshop or whatever is getting ready to happen, why it's happening, what ministry is hosting it, who can you contact, where can you go and purchase your ticket, right? All of that information is happening. What it's doing is that it is re-emphasizing everything that's on that graphic, because we know sometimes people don't read all the way, okay? They don't read all the way. I'm not going to say that people don't read. Sometimes we get distracted and we move on to something else, so we might just glimpse and we don't really take our time to look at every detail of it. So that voiceover is essentially supporting what we have placed on that graphic. Sometimes we may have a video component that goes along with it in that announcement, but all of these things are content. What we can do with that, whereas it was just once inside of the church, no one saw it but our members, is that we can now repurpose, and that's a key word. I want y'all to write that down. We can now repurpose this content to go somewhere else. We're showing it already on Sunday morning on our screens, but what else can we do with that content? We can now share that on our social media pages, just that clip, not the whole entire service, just that clip, right? We can share that on our Facebook page as a video. We can put that on Instagram inside of our IGTV. We can put that inside of our feed on Instagram. We could even put that on YouTube and embed it to our church website. So that's this idea of repurposing content that we're already producing, that we're already creating within the church. You're going to have announcements anyway, but what is a creative way that we can share those announcements? And then how can we use that video that we've created, whoever we've deemed to work on that video, to now share it again and again, so we always have something to post on social media. That's a big thing that a lot of my clients say, like, well, we don't know what to post and when to post and how to post, right? But that is an element of how we can essentially post, right? Finding the good times to share this content online, looking at your data, looking at your insights, seeing how people are interacting with what you're sharing in an online space. Again, all of this centers around this larger conversation of what's in our communications plan and content that is going to represent what we're trying to do in the online space. So the third piece I have here on the screen is that this content includes, and I kind of mentioned some of these, quotes. So we can create graphics that are quotes based. So our pastor said something in his sermon and that stood out to you. You wrote it down, right? You might have went to Facebook and created you a status and said that your pastor said this, right? It was something that stood out to you that you were like, gave you a moment. You felt that in your spirit. That quote, that can become something that you share as a text-based post online, right? So now we're creating these quotes that we can share on Monday morning. Yes, we watched the service online, but how do we continue the conversation of what our pastor talked about throughout the week? Not just on Sunday, but what happens on Monday through Saturday before we come back to another Sunday. We can also share scriptures. So within his sermon, what were the scripture points that he referenced, right? So sharing those things, breaking them down. What do these scriptures mean? Not just sharing the scripture, but how do I apply the scripture to my life? Sermon notes is another graphic. So we know oftentimes every sermon has 3 points, right? Most sermons have these 3 points. We can use those 3 points to, again, create graphics that were centered around point number 1, go into detail about it, ask people questions to prompt the conversation. So it's not just a post that we posted and no one interacted with it, but ask them a question so that the conversation can continue and people can dive deeper, learn more about their faith walk, learn more about God. Do that for sermon note number 1, 2, 3, 4. Photos. Photos is another way that we incorporate into our graphics. And photos are really important. One of the things that I do for any church that we work with is we come in and we do what is called a brand photo shoot. And this brand photo shoot essentially does not look different than your Sunday service. And I'm going to show you some examples of that. Is that we actually come in on a typical Sunday and photos are taken so that they can be used in your graphics. A lot of times, or sometimes, not a lot of times, but sometimes I receive graphic requests and I'm like, hey, I need an image. And the image is distorted, it's low resolution, or there is no image. And that makes it a little harder on someone who's designing, because there are certain elements that we're looking for in order to complete this graphic request. And photos is one of those things. High quality photos are one of those things. Another thing that we can think about in this theme of content is audio. So I mentioned earlier this idea of podcasts and podcasting. There's a platform that is creating a new wave right now, and it's called Clubhouse. And there are many ministry leaders, many preachers and pastors who are on Clubhouse. How can we repurpose that content? Can we take that audio, download it, and put it into a podcast? Can we create a graphic that has a little audio wave flowing as we listen to the conversation that's happening? And now we're sharing it on Facebook, and now we're sharing it on Instagram, now we're sharing it on YouTube. Audio. You can also use sermon audios. That, again, we create this graphic, and you all have probably seen graphics that have the audio wave going through it, and you can hear someone speaking, right? And then video. Of course, video is the most powerful content element that exists in this digital space. So high quality video is also important. HD is important. Having the right camera, having good audio as well. All right, so content branding is essential, and I'm going to share with you a few reasons why it is essential. And throughout this presentation, I'm also sharing with you graphics that have been developed by my company for various churches and for various church organizations. So you'll see some of these things, right? Off to the side, I have a graphic that is from one of our clients in Houston, Texas, which is Freedom Worship Assembly. And Freedom Worship Assembly, it was their pastor's second pastoral anniversary, as well as their Founders Day. And they brought in their the president of the General Convention of Texas, as well as their national president came in to be a part of that amazing weekend of events that took place. So they had a pre-anniversary, then an anniversary. So it was like a Saturday and a Sunday. No, I think it was a Wednesday. It was a Wednesday and a Sunday. So in this graphic, there are several things that you're going to see, right? You're going to see the church colors. You're going to see the church colors represented in this graphic. You see the pastor. You see the 2 invited guests. But then you also see other elements in this graphic, such as their address, because they actually came into the building. This was in the fall when a few churches actually went back into the building. And you see their contact information, their church web address, and that you can connect with them on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. And in the background of these graphics, you probably can't see this, but if you look close, just come into the screen a little bit. If you look close, you'll see that there are photos in the background of this graphic. So there are photos of the pastor up preaching, photos with the pastor having his hand stretched out. That plays into this background dynamic of the graphics. We call those layers. All right, layers that we're putting into the graphic. The church logo is also behind him, right? So you'll see all these different layers that help to build and create this graphic. So graphic design is an important tool that enhances how you communicate. All of this is about communications. Enhances how you communicate with other people. It serves to convey your ideas in a way that is not only effective, but also beautiful. We want to have graphics that make someone stop and say, wow, right? But not only wow, but then we want them to read and see what this graphic is all about. So our graphics grab our viewers' attention. Our graphics help to build trust, because if we keep seeing these graphics, which that next point talks about maintaining consistency, if we keep seeing these graphics and they're informative and they're helping me and they're creating this dialogue without anyone having to say anything, it's building this level of trust within me, the person who's viewing the content, who may or may not go to your church. And it also creates this idea of you being consistent with your graphics, and then something that is easy to recognize. It enhances that recognition of your graphics, okay? It enhances the recognition. So when we talk about this idea of graphic design, I'm going to say that graphics help to establish your first impression, right? The first impression that I'm going to have when you're talking about this particular event, the first impression that I'm going to have when you're talking about an anniversary, the first impression that I'm going to have when you talk about a community drive that you're doing at your church, that first impression, it creates this idea of this narrative that starts to form into people's minds when we introduce something to them by way of graphic design. Another point is that it helps to build credibility. So it helps to build credibility. And I think that ties into this element of consistency, trust, and recognition, is that it builds credibility. What is this church doing within the four walls? What is the church doing online? How is this going to impact my life? Someone who may just be browsing on the internet on a Sunday morning or throughout the week. So there are certain elements that go into creating this online powerful graphics. And I call it, it's themed around branding. And I know someone else is talking in detail and depth about branding. But graphics is essentially your brand in a visual way, right? So here's one of my clients. So this is Second Calvary Baptist Church. So for my church, we did several different logos. You see the first logo that is off to the left-hand side. This first logo was the original logo when I first got to the church. I don't think it's the very first logo of the church, but when I first got there, 9 years ago, this was the logo. And now we can see what this logo looks like all over here to the right. But there's something that happened here in the middle. And they created a 140th church anniversary logo. And that logo was used throughout the year of their 140 years of being a church. So from 1879 to 2019, when we created this logo. And there are certain things that you see that are a common thread. We didn't take away, right, what the church knew to be this identifying mark. But essentially we enhanced it to make it more modern, to make it something that the church wanted. And the church actually voted on the logo. We gave them 3 concepts, and the third one, this third one over here, is the one that they chose. That wasn't my favorite one, but that was the one that the congregation chose. So here you see there are some common themes again, right? This purple, this gold, this white. Every logo that is created, and what I teach to my students at Hampton, is that we want to have 3 colors. We want to have 2 primary colors, and that third color is going to offset the 2. So that third color is always a neutral color. That third color is always my black, my white, gray, right? A neutral color. The 2 primary colors is what is going to grab my attention the most. That purple grabs my attention. That gold grabs my attention. When we first started to work with my church in 2016, the church underwent this huge rebrand. So my pastor said, hey, I want you to do this project. And this is what I'm thinking. And he just poured it all out as to what he was thinking. And there was a rebrand. There was something in his mind that he was trying to achieve, and he onboarded this company to do it, K&R Communications. So what this looks like is that it looked like graphics, it looked like social media advertising, it looked like social media management, it looked like video creation. The goal that my pastor gave us, and I'm going to have to find this exact number. Might be easier if I do this on my phone. Is that he gave us a number of how many people he wanted to reach online. So let me actually find this on my computer, because my phone might move a little too slow. I don't have it off the top of my head. Give me 1 second. He gave us a number of how many people he wanted to reach online within this year. So within that year, I think I'm going to share this link to inside of the chat. So there's the portfolio. Within this year, so within that year, and before I come back to that goal, we actually did over 180 hours of brand and design work. And we saw within that brand and design work that there was a 40% increase in their engagement online with their post. Okay, so what that helped to do was to create this idea of brand recognition, and to establish this reputation that they were trying to create in this online space. With social media, he gave us a goal to reach 2 million people. And we actually reached more than 2 million people. We saw a 43% increase on the social media pages, and we actually ended up reaching 2.5 million people with daily post reach. There was some viral reach that went out there, and then those total impressions actually end up being 4.3 million. So we saw that huge shift in what the church was doing the previous year and what we actually end up doing in that following year, by coming on board and focusing particularly on graphics, social media, online engagement. So these elements do make a big difference. So again, we see in this graphic, the thread of this wheat symbol comes across. So we didn't want to take away of, again, this identifying factor that the church has come to love, right? We didn't change any colors. but we focus in on the symbols that they were using. Another thing that we see inside of this is the font styles that were being used. So you see the font styles transition over into each of these graphics that you see, right? I think the only thing that we changed was this being italicized, right? We see senior pastor. We don't have any italicized text throughout this, but we took what was already here and enhanced it. So that 140 years, they came to love this idea of this celebratory graphic with the pillars in the back. So you see now their current logo continues with that theme and focuses in on SCBC. The wheat is in the middle. The wheat is in the background. The rays are there. And the name of the church. So when we took a look at this, we looked at the church logo, right? What elements were already in that logo that can then transcend into all these other pieces of graphics that we create? So we needed to determine the exact color code. When I say color code, every color that exists has a number that goes with it. So with the number, we went and we found this, and you can go to Google, literally looking for a color code, put a graphic in there, tap on the color, and it's going to tell you what that color code is, okay? So we wanted to know what was the exact purple, what was the exact gold that was used in that original logo that we see off to the left-hand side. We wanted to know what was the exact font styles that was being used. And we actually changed it very slightly, so you can see that this S, this C look a little different than this S and this C over here, but they're similar, okay? They're similar. So we found that font style that went with it as well. And we took all those elements and began to incorporate them into each of the graphics that we were creating for the church. So now we see these graphics, and I pulled these from 2019, where this common thread in each of the graphics is what? The colors of the church. Gold, purple, right? All of our graphics are going to look different. What we notice in this graphic off to the left-hand side, or it's on the left-hand side on my screen. Hopefully it's on the left-hand side of your screen. But right here where my pointer is, what we notice is that we have photos in the background. So every single year, my church has our annual church picnic. So not only did we come in on a Sunday morning and take pictures, but when we had our big events, we also came in and took pictures. Why do we do that? We did this because we knew every single year these same main events happen. Every single year, we're going to need graphics for these events. Okay? So if we're going to need graphics, we need to think about the elements, the features that are going to go into this graphic. So our photographers were there. I had them there for an hour and a half, and they literally walked around and they took pictures. You see people in action, right? One of our deacons is back there hula hooping. We see another deacon on the grill, right? One of the kids coming down the slide. We see people over here hustling or line dancing. I'm from the Midwest. We call it hustling, but being in Virginia, it's called line dancing. And then we see people, standing here. These were our musicians. They're taking pictures. They're smiling. They're happy to be at the church picnic. So we wanted to create a graphic that made people excited that the next church picnic was coming up in June. And I'm extremely excited to be there. I don't know about you, but looking at this graphic, I want to go to the church picnic right now, right? So we're painting this visual picture in people's mind, creating this narrative, telling this story before they actually get there with our graphic, okay? In our graphic, there are elements that are happening here. So we see the title of the event that's happening, 140th church anniversary service and church picnic. We see the church email. That's not the email. The church web address. We see at the bottom what? Our church logo is always going to be present on every single design. And this was through that 140 anniversary logo. So we're going to see that. You're going to see the date. When is this happening? This date is going to stand out. It's not going to be some small little font that's tucked away, but it's going to stand out. It's the 2nd of June, 2019. So we see at the top, we have service and picnic. So what time are the service and the picnic? The service is at 10 a.m. The picnic is at 12. We had a guest preacher. We did a graphic that was just for that guest preacher, but this guest preacher, we also put here on the graphic, which was Reverend Rodney McFarland Jr. Then we have the name of the church address, who's our pastor, Facebook, Instagram. We have our handle, and our handle is very simply @2nd Calvary. So when you @2nd Calvary on Instagram and Facebook, our page is going to pop up. And then we put our hashtag. Our hashtag is SCBC Norfolk, because there is another church that's called 2nd Calvary that's in North Carolina. You know, we don't want people to get confused with our 2nd Calvary that's in Virginia versus the one that's in North Carolina, right? So when we're sharing something online, the hashtag that we came up with for the church when we did the rebrand was SCBC Norfolk. So in all the graphics, when you hear people speak about the church, you'll hear them use SCBC, but that's internal language, right? If I'm talking to someone who doesn't go to SCBC, they're not going to know what SCBC is until I say 2nd Calvary Baptist Church, right? So it's internal language, but then we wanted to take something that was used already in the church and then give it a locality. So now it's SCBC Norfolk. The church is located in Norfolk, Virginia. So that hashtag is used on all of our graphics. There are standard practices that need to take place on each of your graphics. Your logo always needs to be present. Your color schemes needs to be used. Your church web address needs to be present. Your church physical address needs to be there. Right now in the digital space, we might not need that so much because now we're on Facebook and YouTube and etc. But we need to tell people where we are going to be on Facebook and YouTube. What are the links to those profiles, or what is your handle? So it's extremely important that you go in and make sure that all of your handles match. So if you are 2nd Calvary on Instagram, then you also need to be 2nd Calvary on Facebook, right? So you want to make sure that these things match so people can find you and it's streamlined. Create a hashtag for your church. Hashtag for that church needs to be the same hashtag every day. Not because today is a new day, you want to change the hashtag. Don't do that. We can have hashtags that are set for certain moments, but we're always going to have that main tag, right? SCBC Norfolk. One of the things that we do in our church on Sundays, or once when we were there, and we found a way to do this online too, is that we do Selfie Sundays. So our first lady has her selfie stick, and after church she takes pictures with people, and that's a part of the culture of our church. So people look forward to going over to the first lady and taking a picture with her, right? That's a part of like, oh, Sunday's wrapping up, let me go and take a picture with first lady before I leave because she's gonna post it and I'm happy to be in the picture, right? So that's a part of the culture that has been created within our church. Every church is different. You have to create your own church culture. That's a way for our first lady to be relatable to the people. She takes pictures. We call it Selfie Sundays. So Selfie Sundays, we of course have hashtag SCBC Norfolk, but then we use another hashtag, which is hashtag Selfie Sundays. And then you see all these pictures that go into it. Here's another graphic that's off to the right. Again, those common themes that I just mentioned, those core elements are always going to be present. You see these, again, layers that we have created. In the background, there's an image. In the background, there's an image, but also in the background, all right, computer, thank you. All right, so in the background, there's an image, but then also different colors in this border of the graphic. Then we have things layered. So we have that this is the annual CP Madison Missions Conference. who's going to be speaking, 2 speakers here, and then who are these people, right? So who are they as it relates to this conversation that we're getting ready to have about missions? When is it going to happen? Where is it going to happen? So it's at the church, but not only is it at the church, but it's in the fellowship hall, right? Between this time and that time. Here are some other graphics. So this was the pastoral, another pastoral anniversary for a different year. And I'm not sure which year this one was, but this was a different year. So we see here, Pastor and First Lady. When is it going to happen? It's their 36th anniversary. Colors, logo. Then we see this graphic that's over here, and we changed it up, right? So every graphic doesn't have to primarily be purple and gold. But this one was for our Women's and our Mother's Day. So we played on this idea of pink, fuchsia, and purple. So we didn't leave the purple completely out, but we played on this idea of pink, fuchsia, and purple, right? So keeping that dark purple that we have here, but then we brought in some other colors as well. So then you can see how that plays into this graphic. Again, those same core elements are there. And then we have some different features in here, such as the flowers, so on and so forth. So when we talk about these graphics and the graphics that we are using, these things transcend into other elements. So not just the graphics that we're creating, but it's also, let me turn my vibrate off all right, so we also have these different elements that go into the online presence of the church and these different graphics that we created. So anytime someone goes to Second Calvary on Facebook, they're going to see this welcome graphic, right? What's happening in the back of this welcome graphic? There's a picture. You see our pastor standing up here. You see all these people surrounding the altar. This was during the prayer portion of the service. And then it says, welcome to Second Calvary Baptist Church, our senior pastor, our web address, right? You're going to see that logo be very prominent. Our logo is the profile picture. This is an old screen grab, so you can see the old logo. It's a profile picture. But then also when people go over to the website, this banner follows them. Welcome. Same information. It's just a little bit larger than it is on Facebook, right? Same graphic, same image that welcomes them to the website. So these graphical elements are not just inside of this design piece, but it shows up on the website. It shows up on Facebook. It shows up on Instagram. It's everywhere. I talked a little bit about images and how images are important in our graphics. So here's just a quick view of some of the images that we did when we went in and took pictures during a Sunday service. So we have our pastor, praise and worship team. We see our musicians in the back. We went into the children's ministry. We see during the prayer time people holding hands. We're starting to create this visual storytelling or narrative that we're going to use in our graphics, but we can also just very simply post a picture on our pages and people can relate to it. It's a high moment in the service. Things are happening, right? And it's something that draws my attention. So these are just 5 pictures that kind of represents how powerful graphics are, how powerful images are in our graphics, and how powerful images are in general. So I keep mentioning 2 things as I talk about graphics, right? I talk about this idea of storytelling. I talk about this idea of creating a narrative, right? When we see something, we begin to think in our minds what that is going to be like. That's what graphics do. So graphics are at the heart of this digital story that we're creating on social media. Digital storytelling is a relatively new term which describes the new practice of everyday people who use digital tools to tell their stories. We see storytelling happening on all of our social media platforms, not just by way of people going live, but also by way of these stories features that are now very prominent on all social media platforms. You have YouTube stories, Facebook stories, Instagram stories, Snapchat stories, LinkedIn stories. If you guys are on LinkedIn, LinkedIn now has stories. Every platform has this component where people are telling stories. Why do we do that? That's because people, our very nature is that we want to connect with other people. That's just what we do. That's why we are best in community, right? We want to connect with other people. This idea of digital storytelling stems from whatever graphics, visual elements we're creating in this online space. Digital stories often present a compelling and emotionally engaging formats and can be interactive, right? So inside of these stories, we have our web-based stories that I just mentioned, what that looks like, interactive stories. So I may not have to say anything, but I can create a text-based graphic that can ask someone a question and they can respond back to me. I can put that on my feed. I can put that inside of my Instagram stories, my Facebook stories, because I want to interact with people, not just push information out, but we never stop to, ask people how they're doing. What do they think about this? Share your thoughts about that, right? Social media, very nature of social media is to be social. That's the whole point. We don't just want to push out information. We're not hard journalists. That's not what we're doing. But we want to create this community that exists in an online space where people are interacting and talking to one another. And the church essentially creates that initial, right, first impression, that initial conversation, that initial dialogues with what it is that we're posting. And I say here again that graphics are at the heart of all of this digital storytelling. Narrative images, text-based posts. I'm gonna have a few videos here, but I don't have enough time, so I'm gonna go to the next slide because I want to make sure I'm getting through each of these things. So when I talk about text-based posts, here's an example of a text-based post that's interactive, right? People have to swipe. And I'm talking here very particularly about what are the best times to post on Instagram, because that's a question I get all the time. So I created an interactive text-based post that allowed me to create this digital story in the way of a graphic, in the way of an interactive post, where people had to swipe to keep going to get what was the next thing. You see the arrow at the bottom because there's more, right? I'm giving you a real world example of where I want you to go. And then I ended by letting you know, hey, this is me and what I do, right? So ending it by telling people your church, what you do, right? So it starts off with a question. When's the best time to post? Then I go on to answer that question, a digital storytelling post that uses text-based graphics. Cross-promotion is also really important. So this is our reshares, our reposts, when we post that graphic and it goes out, no matter what type of graphic it is. So if you're partnering with a congregation or a ministry or a group organization on an event that you're doing, much like the summit that we're at right now, it was a collaborative event that brings in all of these speakers, right? We want our speakers to share the graphics online, and we want them to post and repost. That gets more people's attention, right? And then another piece here is that we can encourage our members to share content. And a lot of times churches do this. So sharing content, but how do we tell them to do that? One of the things that we put inside of our captions is called CTAs, and CTAs means call to action. We don't want to just post a post and we don't have a caption. Don't do that. Post a post, post a graphic, and give me some type of caption. And at the end of that caption, we want to tell people what to do, right? Comment in the post if you agree. Share this with 2 friends if this resonated with you. It's a call to action. I don't want you to just see the post because you took all the time to create the graphic, to share it on social media. We don't want it to just fall there, but we wanted to see people sharing and interacting with that post. So have call to actions. And a lot of our posts, when we create them, if it is going to be a good post, people are going to automatically post and reshare it anyway. This is what we see happen all the time in the online space. Just content just keeps being shared and shared and shared and recycled and recycled and recycled. If you create a graphic, text-based or a main graphic, or otherwise, people are going to share it anyway, and you don't have to ask them, and that's where you want to get to. But before we get there, we need to have that CTA. Tell people what we want them to do once they have seen this graphic. And what this cross-promotion piece allows us to do is to establish relationships with popular church platforms that will help to expand your reach, help to expand your audience. An example that I have here is a feature of my church being featured on this platform called I Need a Word. It's a church platform that exists that has millions of followers, and we shared a video. And from that, we receive more reach on our page, and we started to get more traction in driving people to the church's Facebook page. That was the goal, right? So we shared this content on this platform, and we saw what happened. There was 8.3 views on that video, more views than we got when we posted the video, right? It now had 108 shares. It now had 183 reactions. So what ways can we cross-promote our content, cross-promote our videos, cross-promote our graphics with other platforms that exist in this space? Here's another example of some other graphics that we did for the National Baptist Congress of the National Baptist Convention USA Incorporated. So this was for IROC, right? It's something that they wanted to reach their youth. They were targeting millennials. So you see these stock images. In this case, we are using stock images. So that means that images were not provided to us. So we went into our stock portfolio and found some images that would resonate to the audience that they were trying to target based on the theme of that graphic. So we see over here with iRock Live. So this was based on music. So, hey, we found a stock image of a guy with a guitar. And it plays into the theme of what this graphic is all about. Right? iRock Young Adult Explosion. Here's a girl. She's extremely excited and extremely happy. What's happening here? When is it happening? So those same themes that we saw in the graphics that I talked to you all about previously are in this graphic too. Who's hosting it? What's the title of it? Where is it going to be? This was in Baltimore, Maryland. Who's the recording artist? They wanted, in this case, people to sign up and be a part of this live talent show. When is it happening? Wednesday, the 19th. At this time, you can stream it on Facebook, right? Who's it being hosted by? iRock. They had another contributor here, along with the National Baptist Convention logo. You also saw this book bank because they were doing a drive, a community initiative based on this event to give back to their community. Then we see over here another event that took place. Title is here. What's happening? General Assembly, et cetera, band drama. Participants were needed. There was a registration fee. How much did it cost? $10. Logo was here. iRock, follow them on all their social media pages. And then some of the things that we had to include here, because this is a national organization, is who was the national president, and then who was also the president of the Baptist Congress. And then also their director of iRock. So there were like 3 people that we had to include on this graphic that you see down here at the bottom. So this theme throughout that weekend was blue jeans and white tees. So you see in this graphic, blue jeans and white tees. So we're creating that story. We're creating that narrative in this graphic. So this is the first thing people are going to see. The last thing I want to leave you all with is here. Powerful online graphics help you to control the narrative, right? I said there were 2 things I kept mentioning: digital storytelling, creating this narrative. So when we create this narrative, you want to create a hashtag. You want to develop your voice for your church. So that helps you determine how are you going to communicate. Is it going to be something that is upbeat? I challenge you to think about that based on what is the heart of your church. And that heart of your church goes to what's the mission that your church has. Every church has a different mission. Our goal is all the same, but every church has a different mission, right? At my church, we're a community church with a global vision. That's the mission of the church. Everyone knows that who goes to our church. What's the mission? And we're a community church. We're in our community. We're very active in our community. We have bus stop ministries. We have our prison ministry. We have the ministry that happens in the projects. We have all these ministries. It's community driven. It's focused. But then also missions that happen abroad. All right. That's the heartbeat of the church. So you see that, right? Is your church mission driven? Is it community driven? Make those things come alive in your posts on social media. You want to own content when your members share about your church. So if any of your members are sharing anything, if you're creating some type of social media campaign, you have a graphic to go along with it, let the church also reshare that, right? Bring that content back, because what we want to see is that people are interacting, they're engaging with what you all are doing online, with the graphics that you're sharing, with the campaigns that you're doing, and then essentially creating this conversation. So encourage your members to share on their personal page, tag people if they're in a post, right? If you have a post featuring your pastor, tag your pastor, tag your first lady, tag your ministry leader here and there. Bring people into this conversation. People love to see their posts and their pictures online, right? So create that narrative, and graphics is one way that helps you to do that. So I have a gift that I want to give to you all. And this gift is a graphic, and it's a template. One of the things that we do inside of Digital Church University, inside of our membership, is that we give these quarterly template packages. So we do sermon templates, text-based templates, lower thirds, all these things that churches use. Because if you struggle with graphics and that's not your strong suit, right, that's not what you do, but you need to have a graphic to go with something, we create a template. So all you have to do is go in and plug and play your information. I literally lay it out for you. You're going to place your title here, right? When is it happening? Every Sunday at what time? Replace our logo with your logo. You can change the background image to another image of somebody else, somewhere else, something that you have in your church. Just remember that it's a high quality image, right? Then I have here, explain more detail about your series. So this is a sermon series template. Put your address down here, 123 street address, phone number, any additional information, live on Facebook, join us, put your social media handle. It's a template. All you got to do is literally click it, plug and play. I've uploaded it into a system that you all may be familiar with, and that's Canva. So these templates all live in canva.com. So you don't have to go and learn some external system like we do at my agency, but we make this very simple for you to do. So please use this information on the screen to get it. All you have to do is text digital church, one word, text digital church, one word, to 31996. 31996. And I'm going to give you two things. I'm going to give you this free template, and I'm also going to give you our church, our social media ministry guide. So that comes along with it, because I can't talk about graphics without talking about having a social media ministry, a social media team, this marketing plan, content. Graphics is not some third party thing that exists, but it all goes together. It all goes together. So I want you to make sure that you get this these giveaways that I'm giving to you. So please text digital church to 31996 so I can give you those two things. Okay. And then last but not least, please make sure that you connect with me online. You can follow me on Instagram. You can find me on Facebook. If you want to learn more about how my company, K&R Communications, can partner with your church, please send me an email, Keisha@knragency.com. Explore more on our website at knragency.com. And then if you're interested in joining Digital Church University, you can go over to Digital Church University. Throughout this weekend, we have 60% off. So you can become a member of DCU this weekend, 60% off forever. So that's forever on your monthly or your annual plan, whichever plan you decide to choose with us. So yeah, I want to invite you to connect with me and to explore these platforms that exist for you to help you to rethink church in the digital age. So thank you all. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Are there any questions? You could put the questions in the comment section. I'm back here. I'm looking at it. So if you have any questions, please let me know. And I'll pause for a moment. So if you have any questions, you can go ahead and type it into that chat box. Make sure that you text Digital Church to 31996 to get your goodies. Okay, I have one question. It says, do you use Canva for all of your graphics? I don't use Canva for all of my graphics. I did create this presentation in Canva, but I don't use Canva for all of my graphics. But I use them for our templates that we create for our clients and our templates that we create within Digital Church University. So it makes it easier for you, someone who's not a graphic designer or may not be a graphic designer, to go in and create or use the templates that we use. We do have a master class inside of Digital Church University that goes into actually how you can master Canva for your ministry. So that is one of the master classes inside of that platform if you're interested in taking that class. Good question. Thank you, Melissa. Do we have any other questions? You're welcome. Okay. Does Digital Church University also teach around Adobe Photoshop? We do not teach around Adobe Photoshop. That's not something that we have in there. That can be something that we offer, but that's not something that we have in there. We are building out our master classes for this year, so we have everything built out up until April. But if that's something that we see that our audience really wants to learn about, that's definitely something that we will add to it. So currently, we don't. You're welcome. Thank you. Do we have any other questions, comments? All right, if none, please make sure, if you could think about something later, make sure that you go ahead and connect with me. I also want to invite you all, along with getting your goodies, I want to invite you all to join the Facebook group for Digital Church University. Every month, I do a live office hour, so you can come and bring all of your questions. If you have any questions about social media, about digital tools that you can use in your church, it's a one-on-one interaction. And then every single day, we put out tips for online ministry, for social media, and the life of your church. So there's tips that go out every single day for you to use as well. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So, Tina, when you text, you're gonna put in your I open up my phone. So you're gonna put in your, like, where you would actually put for someone's number, that 31996. And then when you put in that 31996, inside of your text thread is where you're gonna text Digital Church in that text thread. Okay, you got it? Okay. All right. Good. Oh, okay. All right. So I'm going to go ahead. When I look at it, I'll make sure that I send it back out to you. You're welcome. Thank you for telling me. All right. Do we have any other questions before I leave out today? I do have to go and jump into one of my classes at Hampton. Everything's online. Okay, so I'm going to make sure you guys are going to get another text from me that has the information that you need in there. So I'm definitely going to get it to you. So just give me a few moments and I'll get that to you all this afternoon. So thank you again for joining this presentation. I hope that it has helped you, and please connect with me in the future in any way, any capacity that I've shared with you all today. And I look forward to seeing what else happens in this event, this 2-day summit that has been created. So thank you all again. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.